Welcome into Basketball by Association, the non-static version of this here podcast. My name is Arky Shea, willing to sell you the static version if you're willing to pay the dollar for it. Joined alongside by Joel C. Cordes. Joel, hello.
Hey, and this non-static version can be found on YouTube. Give us a like, share, subscribe over there. Ring the little bell so you get the notifications. If you're listening for the audio-only version, we are on Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And this, Arky Shea, is episode 82. No player in NBA history has ever worn number 82. So we go to the 81-82 season and the MVP that year. We could have gone Rookie of the Year. One of my favorite guys from the early and mid 80s, Buck Williams, who was around forever, was a big Buck Williams fan, even though he predates my time. But I remember old Buck Williams when I started watching the league. But we're going to go with the MVP instead, because this was the first of two back-to-back MVPs that he had. And he would get a third one later. This is a walking double-double. He has not been one of our episode names before, although I did name drop him a couple of weeks ago. His name is alliterative, and there was also a really good player that shared his last name that came just a few years later and in fact did win an MVP himself. Those are your clues. Who you got here?
This is an interesting puzzle. Alliterative name. Name dropped a few weeks ago. I feel like I've only heard like 6 names in the last 3 weeks, so it probably should be easy. His namesake won an MVP
later. Actually, in the next decade, won an MVP as well. But he entered the league just a few years after this guy had won a couple of his MVPs. In fact, I think he would have had all 3 of them already by that point. This year, he's 26 years old, 31 points, 14.7 rebounds, and a block and a half.
Will this make me feel dumb?
Yeah, it's a name that, I mean, most people should know. Maybe the young kids don't know all that much about this guy, but people our age would know this name. This MVP was won with the Houston Rockets. He would win the following year after changing teams. He would win with the Philadelphia 76ers, and he would pick up another one with the Sixers.
Oh, I don't want to. Crap.
His first name is biblical.
Jesus?
This is the Moses Malone episode.
You know what it was? I got stuck on Rookie of the Year. You said not rookie in it. Okay,
yeah, he was.
I kept thinking who was rookie, but you're right. Okay, that's my fault. That's completely on me.
So I can remember in the early 90s, once I began watching the league, he was still hanging around. He played with the Bucks for a few years in the very beginning of the 90s, went back to the Sixers in 93, 94, and at age 39, logged a season with the San Antonio Spurs. Only appeared in 17 games, but I vaguely remember seeing an old Moses Malone in the mid-90s because I was a big David Robinson fan, and I watched those Spurs whenever they were on national TV. But yeah, 3 MVPs, so many All-Stars that it's like I can't even count. It was almost every single year during the beginning of that career for him. Came into the league at 19 years old. He was a 13-time All-Star, in fact, 3-time MVP. So yeah, this is the Moses Malone episode. If you wanted points and you wanted rebounds, this dude was your dude.
Did you allude to he and David Robinson cross paths?
They would have both played on that mid-90s, 94-95 San Antonio Spurs team.
Oh my God, Moses Malone was in the 94-95 season. Dude.
But man, he only appeared for 17 games,
right?
Only got 3 points and almost 3 rebounds. So I mean, he wasn't appearing much, and it had been a handful of seasons already since he had averaged double figures. His last time doing that would have been 91-92 with the Bucks.
What
year? 15 points and 9 boards.
What age year would that have been? How old would he have been in 94, 95?
39.
Yeah.
So he played,
he played
ancient,
20, like basketball
20 years.
Ancient.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Holy smokes!
Because I mean, you figure he came in with the Utah Stars in the ABA in 1974-75, so played a couple of seasons with the ABA, then made that transfer over in 76-77 with the Buffalo Braves. He only appeared in 2 games over there, and then went to the Rockets after that, and that was the beginning of the Moses Malone that we know, where he's starting to be real dominant.
Well, Mr. Malone, we dedicate this one to you, and not to the Buffalo Braves version of you or to the San Antonio Spurs version of you. Boy, that tidbit's just not in my brain. Him with the San Antonio Spurs and David Robinson.
Only reason I know that is NBA on NBC. That's right in the beginning years where I'm starting to tune in every chance I get. I'm about 10, 11 years old at that point, and big David Robinson fan. That might be the season where Dennis Rodman is still there with them. Yeah, he would be. So yeah, they were on national TV a ton at that point.
All right. Well, let's get to it. This here Moses Malone podcast. What makes it sound like it's this? We're dedicating this one into his namesake. I want to start off this podcast not recapping the first week of games, because things are just going to continue to go on. But I thought we introduced a new segment into this podcast going forward, and I think a great way to do it is by starting with my top 3 performances of the week. So remember, game started last Tuesday? Was that right?
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday,
yep.
Last Tuesday, and then they just kept on going. Apparently, they're just going to play all the nights of the week. That's cool. That's what I like. All right, here we go. In the first week of basketball-y, my top 3 performances include number 3, your Minnesota Timberwolves. Top 3 performance. These T-Wolves are 2-0. They've beaten the mighty Houston Rockets and the biblical New Orleans Saints with Zion on that team. 2 wins to start their season. They are one of only 4 Western Conference teams that are undefeated right now, or 5. I think it's.
And they get the Pelicans again tonight at the time of this taping. So on Monday night here, they see the Pelicans again. So they got a real nice chance to start 3-0.
Can I just say this real quick? There's been a lot of these early in the season, these teams playing back-to-back, like each other back-to-back. Sprinkle these in the middle of the season when we're not paying that much attention. I don't like seeing them right at the beginning of the season. It's weird because we're also getting a lot of them. Right?
I think we're going to see a ton of them in general as a way to try to cut down on inter-team exposure and travel. So this is going to be a thing that we see a lot more this season as a scheduling quirk, because we're still not done with COVID yet.
Sprinkle them later. I don't want to see them early in the season. Figure that out. Like I don't know who to talk to, who to email, and who to CC on that. But I'm not BCCing them. I'm CCing. I want everybody to CC that. So because the Knicks played Orlando in back-to-back games by going to Orlando and then welcome back to New York. Guess which one went the right way?
I watched that game last night where the Magic wound up winning, so I may have been the unlucky charm there. It was about tied when I tuned in, and then things got a little dicey.
You're hereby banned from watching the Knicks, by the way.
That's not really a punishment for me, but all right.
Oh, it will be. Trust me. You'll be missing out on the number 2 seed at most of the season.
They have a better record than the Nets right now, so what more can we say?
That's about 70% of the NBA does right now, it feels like. Anyway, your Minnesota Timberwolves is not a Knicks podcast. Your Minnesota Timberwolves 2-0. It's the first time they've been 2-0 since last season, where they started off 2-0. And in fact, it's the 3rd straight season they started 2-0. Last year they lost 7 straight after winning 2-0, going 2-0. So,
and they went 4 whole months before they won back-to-back games. Period. So that's a shout out to Jim Peterson, the color commentator for the Wolves, who's phenomenal, by the way, for dropping that little tidbit as they were celebrating the 2-0. It's like, yeah, we've been here before, and let's not forget how things turned out last year when everyone got hurt in Game 3. So.
But
fingers crossed.
You and I were texting during that Rockets game, that game 1 of the season, and Anthony Edwards and Big Cat, those dudes were killing it.
They were cooking, and they were up by 30. I think they won that game by 18. And again, it's Houston. But what's been impressive to me in these 2 games is that Minnesota's actually defending very well. They're flying all over the place. They're creating a ton of turnovers. They're getting a lot of defensive rebounds, and that is igniting a fast break. So there's an actual defensive identity and a scheme. Whether they can do that against the really good teams, we'll find out. But the effort is there early in the season, and the understanding that this team is built to run, and they're built to pick you apart with their athleticism from a lot of different angles. So I'm excited. It's a different 2-0 than the last couple seasons. And I look at a team like New Orleans. Yeah, they're missing Zion. I look at a Rockets team. Yeah, they're not very good, but the Rockets should put up a ton of points this year. And I'm pleased through the 2-0 start.
And I do want to just say this, that there's a lot of people who just say, oh, it's this team, it's this team. I hate that argument at the beginning of the season, because at the beginning of the season, everybody can win a championship, and everybody's fighting hard, and everybody's playing hard, and everybody's got something to prove, because you just sort of never know, right? You never know. I mean, did we expect what happened with Phoenix to happen last season? Not quite. I mean, but I think most people were still thinking maybe a year away from doing this, or another year away. But like the Knicks, nobody were expecting the Knicks to be able to fight that hard and be able to play. What was it?
This team
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Charlotte started off really hot last season. So I don't like the argument early that like, oh, it's just this team. Hey, you don't know what this team is yet.
I will say this: they are deeper, more talented, and more balanced than any Timberwolves team probably since 2004. No, they're not going to the Western Conference Finals like in 2004, but I'm still applying this against that Jimmy Butler-led team 4 or 5 seasons ago that did make it to the playoffs at least, and that was younger Karl Anthony Towns and young Andrew Wiggins. This team is deeper and more balanced. It's a better team than that one was even. So I said before when we did our season preview that I'm expecting, if this team stays healthy, that they can be a play-in tournament team easily enough. Whether they can sniff a top 8 seed remains to be seen. It's so tough in the West, but they're legit, and they're going to win some games this year. Again, crossing fingers that Karl Anthony Towns stays healthy and D'Angelo Russell can do the same.
Well, they're tied for the 1 seed right now, which is pretty good. It's
well,
pretty
see how
good
long
starting
that
this recording. My number 2 top performances of the week. How about Avery Bradley on Friday night, huh? Friday night against the Lakers becomes just the 11th player to accomplish a monumental feat. Something that's only happened 10 other times before him. He played 21 minutes and recorded 0 stats. That's right. He played 21 minutes of NBA basketball and got 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, and in fact was barely even a ghost on the court there offensively or defensively or at all. But he is my number 2 performance of the week. How about Avery Bradley, huh?
And remember, he just got cut by the Warriors like right as training camp ended. This is a guy who not too long ago was, being touted as one of the better defenders in the league, especially when he came in with the Boston Celtics. He logged like 6 seasons. If you go to his basketball reference page, it is just a nightmare after the 26-17 season. That was age 26 with the Celtics. Since then, he has played 40 games for the Pistons, 6 for the Clippers in one season, then another 49 for the Clippers the following year, got traded to Memphis, logged 14 games there. He did 49 games with the Lakers in 2019-20. Last year, he played for the Miami Heat and the Houston Rockets, a total of 27 games between the two of them. Was with the Warriors in training camp, got cut. He is now on the Lakers, where he has logged 3 games. And if he has too many more like this, he's not going to be on the Lakers much longer. I don't believe it's anything more than a veteran minimum contract. I think it's more than a couple of 10 days, though.
Avery Bradley, though, is someone Anthony Davis has said within the last 24 hours that they really wanted him. They really wanted him once they figured out he was available to be had, I guess. We're like, yeah, sure. Why not? I recognize that name. So, and my top performance from this last week, how do you go anywhere else other than the NBA Western Conference Player of the Week? Steph Curry, tremendous start to the season. 45 points. What was that? That was on Thursday versus the Clippers. 45 points, 10 rebounds. That's 2 days after going a triple-double, going 21, 10, and 10. Joel, I think he was, 8 for 8 in the first quarter, I think, in that game against the Clippers, which is good.
10 for 10, actually. He wound up going through his first 10 shots. I don't know if that was through the entirety of the first quarter, but yeah, he went 10 for 10. on his first, and just so happens to have been the keeper for my fantasy team in our podcast league. So I am quite pleased to have taken Steph Curry with like the second to last pick in the first round, because that's where he fell as my keeper. Talk about value.
Yeah, I wanted to find a stat. I tweeted it out, so I want to be able to find it real quick so I can. It was brought up on the TNT broadcast because, dude, I don't know, I can't stop watching some of the stuff. It was his 35th quarter where he's had at least 20 points in his career. 35 times he scored 20 points in a quarter. A quarter!
I will say this, through the first few games, though, he was cooking in that second one. The first game to open the season against the Lakers did not shoot the ball well. He rarely seems to shoot the ball well when he's at Staples Center for whatever reason. He's talked about that before. Then they play the Kings, so they're on the California tour.
Yeah. I was going to say, what did he do in that Lakers game, though?
Well, it got better, right? And the Warriors won. But just pointing out that even against the Kings, where he scores 27 points, 10 assists, 7 boards, he's 9 for 23 from the floor, 4 of 15 from downtown. So as good as he's been, good enough to get Western Conference Player of the Week and to be 3-0, the shooting percentages, they haven't been good 2 out of the 3 games, but the Warriors have given him license to chuck, as you should when it's Steph Curry. And what's really impressive about Golden State, who I know we'll get to in a little bit here, but it speaks to Steph Curry, is the way that they're just playing with like a flow and a pace and an understanding of each other. And so these looks that Steph is getting, yeah, there's plenty of ridiculous ones, but even the ones he's missing, you go, yeah, that's a pretty good look for Steph.
Yeah.
They look like a not completely well-oiled machine, but really not bad for the beginning of a season. And Draymond Green has talked about that as well. You've got a couple of new pieces coming in who are going to play some bigger minutes. Nemanja Bjelica and Otto Porter Jr. coming off the bench. But most of these other guys have been here, and a lot of the secondary guys have been playing with each other these last few seasons where a lot of the key Warriors were hurt. So they're ready to go. And you just see the way everything fits and flows coming off the bench. And how you can plug and play any of these guys with their starters. And Steph is just, he looks so comfortable out there right now, which, again, it's the 3rd game of the season. They're 3-0. A lot can change, but it's scary when you look at that and you go, but he could shoot a lot better too.
And yeah, and still waiting on Clay. Hey, listen, they're one of 4 teams undefeated in the West, right? They're basically technically half a game up on your Timberwolves right now, but that's, you guys will probably figure that out throughout the season. There's 80 more for you guys, 79 for them. You who's got to feel a little ticked right now? Paul George. Dude's got 35.5 average over the first 2 games, and it's like, and Steph's like, yeah, but we won the games too, so I get the Player of the Week. Paul George's like, I'm averaging 35.5.
Yeah, but your team's 0-2 and looking a little sluggish.
We only lost to the Warriors by 2 or 3 or whatever was that name. I'm 35 and I'm number 1 in the league. I think he's still number 1 in the league, if I'm not mistaken. But
and that pace is going to have to be sustainable for the Clippers, because
oh my God, really?
the offense has got to come from somewhere. And with no Kawhi Leonard, Terrence Mann is not off to a flaming hot start, which they were hoping he would be, able to provide a lot of punch. Eric Bledsoe's given them 17 points a game, which is a lot for Eric Bledsoe considering where he's been. Reggie Jackson, 14 points a game, but a horrible player efficiency rating right now. And after that, it is a huge drop off. You're going to need Ivica Zubac to give you 15 to 18 points, not 10 per game. But you look at a lot of these other guys, Marcus Morris is at 9, Luke Kennard at 8, Terrence Mann at 7. And it gets a little scary because that feels just about right for them. And there's not a lot of other scoring help off the bench. Justice Winslow is a guy that they were hoping could resurrect his career, but there's been a couple of teams hoping he could resurrect his career the last couple seasons as he comes back to be hurt. So maybe that helps, but their efficiency rating is just in the toilet across this team. And you watch them and they're sluggish.
Yeah. technically it's early, but I would like to
Yeah.
hear General Manager Joel Cortez go down to Tyronn Lue and say, all right, we looked at the numbers. You're going to have to tell Paul George that he needs to average 36 a game or we can't win.
I don't think Paul has to be told that. I think he's smart enough to probably know that, and he's going to get those points. But again, you overtax somebody for that long, and you go, all right, just got to keep us afloat so Kawhi gets back. But you got to have something left in the tank when Kawhi gets back, so that you don't have a broken down Paul George then sitting as soon as Leonard is back, because he's going to be on load management. It's a team that we've said has had a lot of depth for the last couple seasons, and I think the depth is there, but they're also very top heavy. And so when you lose one of those top two players, like for any team, it's really hard to overcome that. But there's a lot riding on the shoulders of a very young Terrence Mann who showed some things, and they kind of need him to be a 15 to 20 point per game scorer. And he looks like a young kid who's pressing now against some scouting reports.
Yeah, let's talk about not the Clippers anymore. They got time. By the way, they got to play Portland tonight, and that's 3 straight last year playoff teams to start the season, which is not the easiest feat to do. And they can go 0-3. They're the only winless team in their division right now. So, I'm not saying it's panic time by any stretch, but like
No.
they want to win pretty badly. They want to win pretty badly just to get some kind of positivity to start to get into the season. You don't want to be just continue to be close. You want to get over the hump on one or two of these soon.
Yeah, and I mean they've lost their 2 games by a total of like 4 points is the differential. So
you just want to get over the hump. You just want to get one in the win column just to let things breathe for a second. The Warriors we brought up, who are the team that has the Western Conference Player of the Week, and of course just beat those Los Angeles Clippers to, I guess, for their second game of the season. The Remember Us Now tour is underway, and they've started out 3-0. Looked pretty efficient and good at times, and of course, they do have Steph Curry, who is hard to sort of ignore in situations like these. But it seems to be, Joel, that even though we talked about them in the offseason, we talked about them on our preview episodes and our preview episode with predictions last week, it seems to be that this Remember Us tour is starting to get some people onto the bandwagon with us, Joel. Like 3-0 is on pace to go 82-0, which is a pretty good record.
I let me be on record. It was like a month and a half ago that we did the Pacific Division preview, and I called them to win the division at that point. We didn't get into like the longer term outlook, but yeah, last week I think you picked them to pick up a championship, or no, we both picked them to lose against the Nets, but to make it to the NBA Finals.
That's right.
So I mean that's about as bandwagon as you can get, and
although
so far so good.
We were chugging on that bandwagon. Like one of us is driving and the other one gets to ride shotgun. Everyone else get on board behind us. We got lots of room, by the way. It's not a hard team to get behind, and a lot of people are getting on board with that. They're seeing a healthier looking team and a hot Steph Curry early, and that makes the recipe for a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, I remember the Golden State Warriors. I remember Mr. 35 times I scored 20 in a quarter, Steph Curry. This may not be such a bad team to be paying attention to."
Yeah, and what I really like is they seem to have gone back to the blueprint of where they were at in their first couple championships. So this is pre-Kevin Durant. They're so much deeper than they have been in years. And it's not a lot of big name guys, but it's guys who fit a specific role for what they need. Kevon Looney, a much older Kevon Looney now versus the young kid who went through those first few championships, is really providing them the kind of spot starter Andrew Bogut role defensively, where he's going to be able to protect the rim. He's going to save Draymond Green to be able to take those tougher matchups later in the game. Kevon Looney is not the passer that Bogut was, but that's where Nemanja Bjelica comes in. Bjelica is a very underrated passer at 6'10", kind of a stretchy 4. He can hit the 3 a little bit. He was dynamite in his first game with the Warriors. He's cooled off in the other 2, but been very effective. And both of those guys have player efficiency ratings over 20. And then you've got a couple long arm guys coming off the bench, and Otto Porter Jr., who's a reclamation project. Juan Toscano Anderson is a guy that they picked up out of the G League milieu last year and all of a sudden carved out a role for himself. Jordan Poole can shoot threes and is averaging 17 points a game. Damian Lee, 12 points a game. You've got Andre Iguodala back in the mix as just kind of, a much older player. He's going to play a lot less, but a guy who understands where everyone's going to be at all times and how to help quarterback the defense with Draymond Green. He's going to be able to pass along some of that institutional knowledge and still give you, 10 minutes a game. Right now he's up at 24. I don't think that's going to be sustainable for Iguodala, but again, he's holding his own in there. His player efficiency rating is slightly higher than average. So he's able to do valuable things for them. And you just look up and down this team. And like I said, Steph at this point, 43.5% from the field, 39% from downtown. Those feel a few ticks low for where he's at. Player efficiency rating for some of these guys that I mentioned feels a tick low. Like there's upside yet for this. Mm-hmm. And yet you see when they're clicking and the ball is moving and the opponent's defense just doesn't have an answer for it. It very much is a how do you like me now, remember us type of thing, because it is very reminiscent of when they were taking the league by storm. They don't surprise anybody anymore, but that doesn't mean you can unlock all, or stop all of this because of Steph. And you just got to hope that they get Clay back, by the All-Star break or slightly thereafter, that he's got enough time to get warmed up. And he's not going to be the Clay of old, but if you have another shot maker, another dead-eye shooter, who hopefully by that point he's at least an average defender, man, look out.
Yeah, they also play a demoralizing type of basketball too. If you're the other team, like you can go from up 3 to down 7 in like 95 seconds. Like
absolutely,
it's a type of offense that I call it like a bomb diffusing offense. Like if you're trying to defuse a bomb, you have to be so meticulous and so careful, and any slight imperfection with your movement could start a run for them. And you're like almost playing on eggshells the whole time, like on defense, if you're trying to play the whole time. But again, for Golden State, like you're the target every time coming into a lot of people's arenas. People want to see you. And so you're going to have people get up and ready and excited to play you. You're not the Kings, right? Like people are interested in playing you. They're not as interested in playing Tyrese Halliburton. Like, so it's a little bit of a different thing. I read that Clay may be able to get back to full contact practice in about a month, which would be good news for them. And whether it's Christmas time or January or mid-January or something like, or All-Star break, you want him to be ready and go getting into March and April in full shape and ready to sort of give your team hopefully the bump of the push over the edge.
Last year they were a middle of the pack defensive team, and that felt like overachieving. They played with a lot of energy on that defensive end. They had some really nice nights, but they were young and they made a lot of mistakes. This year they're still middle of the pack again, but I look at that and the eyeball test tells me differently. It's not nearly as many mistakes. They look, again, so much more cohesive. You can credit that to a full training camp with Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. Steph Curry's leading them in steals at 2 a game. He's leading them in practically every category you can think of, except for blocks. But I attribute the fact that they're middle of the pack in points given up to the pace they play at. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're scoring 118 points a game and giving up 111. High scoring teams just do that. So I think they're a better defensive team than last year. And middle of the pack, as you've pointed out before, is really the only place they need to be. Anything beyond that is gravy when you're able to score with that. And yeah, you got to get tough stops during the playoffs, but this is a team that's been able to do that in the past more often than not.
I want to speak still of bandwagon teams, because I started to notice some people in the second half of that Hawks Mavericks game start to get onto my bandwagon as far as the Atlanta Hawks and how good they could be. They looked really good in that game against Dallas. Trae Young, I think it was for 19 and 14 in that game. He was sensational as usual. And I got excited because I thought this is the team I'm expecting. And then because it's 82 games, life came at me really, really quickly with the Cleveland game. But John Collins was a different animal in the Cleveland game. Only had like I think 6 points compared to 16 against Dallas. It was a disappointing game too. But again, Atlanta's the fresh, hot, young, exciting team in the East. I mean, I think people are kind of over Philadelphia. They sort of had a run, and we'll see as far as the level of new attention of fans. Brooklyn is sort of the front running team that sort of you're the poser if you sort of root for that team, right? Milwaukee's got their championship, so the bandwagon team is probably going to be one of these younger teams, and it's probably going to be not probably it is so far in Atlanta because they have every piece of good looking outfit that they need to be really, really good. And I'm a little disappointed we're not talking about a 2-0 team instead of right now we're talking about a 1-1 team. But Atlanta's getting people on board too because I saw Twitter a flutter with the talk late last week.
And I texted you while watching the Atlanta Dallas game and said, I'm on that bandwagon with you. I was a little hesitant when we did our preview, but I still put them in third. I think you had them in second in the East. I'm on that bandwagon. They are talented enough, legit. And I'm not just saying this because Brooklyn is off to a slow start. Like Atlanta is talented enough to make an NBA Finals this year. They're deep. They're loaded. They're young. They're deeper than Brooklyn. They might be deeper than Milwaukee. Or it's a toss between Brooklyn and Atlanta. The difference, though, is that Atlanta's depth and those young legs, which are really going to give people problems, it doesn't quite have the veteran tinge that Brooklyn and Milwaukee do. So what's going to come back to get Atlanta? It's going to be what's behind the ears, honestly. And I'm not saying they're a dumb team. It's just they don't have that experience quite yet. They've been getting close, right? They had a really nice playoff run last season, and you build and build on top of that. And we saw the Phoenix Suns last year kind of turn that old cliche on its head. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, yes, Atlanta could absolutely surprise people and get to the Eastern Conference Finals, get to the NBA Finals. All of the pieces are there. They just come at you with so many wings who can do so many different things. Cam Reddish scoring almost 20 points a game right now off the bench. He's on my fantasy team as well. Picked him up, I think, second to the last round. But like, they're really, really dangerous. But it's going to come down to that consistency. Can you make something repeatable? And I'll take a quote from the Timberwolves coach in talking about their 2-0 start to his team. He said, "We are only as good as what we can repeat." So you can have a great game and you can run some people out of the building and whatever. And Atlanta's certainly capable of that, but you can't show up to a Cleveland game and then get surprised. And you can't show up into playoff games and have one great game one night and then, another night where John Collins or Trae Young it doesn't look right, whatever it is. And it's that consistency that's going to be, I think, the big key for them all season. And that's going to be the lesson to be learned. And you're going to have to figure that out this year as you go.
They take on Detroit tonight. They're big favorites against Detroit. Cade Cunningham is still out with his ankle. So you would expect this is the type of game that you're only as good as what you can repeat. Very, very nicely said. You need to be able to get back and win this game and win it. I don't necessarily mean comfortably, but like, it shouldn't be a 1 or 2 possession game for the majority of it. You should be able to slowly pull away from that one. Again, as much as I think Detroit is a fascinating team to sort of kind of watch, I mean, you don't have what a lot of people think is going to be the rookie of the year on that team right now. So you need to take advantage of these games when you can get them, when you get sort of a little bit of an undermanned Detroit team, especially compared to that roster for Atlanta. And that game's at home. I mean, come on. This needs to be an Atlanta big win tonight. So, still not going to root for them over the Knicks. I'm just saying, like, I'm not getting that much in love with them. I'm just saying I'm recognizing the good that I am seeing. But even if they were a 2 seed, the Knicks were an 8 seed, they would lose to the Knicks eventually.
it's a testament to depth when you can look at a second unit and go, that group is good enough to start together. And yeah, they wouldn't be a playoff team. That's why they're a second group. But I could take those guys and put them into a starting lineup and see what happens. And I look at Atlanta's starting five, Trey and Bogdanovich, although he's off to a little bit of a slow start. Clint Capella, who's been such a great lob receiver. John Collins, DeAndre Hunter. Like, it's a scary starting five. And then I look at the bench and I go, there's so much plug and play ability, but even if I had to play that five for stretches, you got DeLon Wright and Kevin Huerter in the backcourt, Cam Reddish, who's the X factor, because he's your scorer, he's your star out of this. But then Solomon Hill and Gorgie Jang up front, who are both just savvy veterans at this point, and they just do the right thing more often than not. Jang is such a huge help for this particular team, especially when they were going really young at the backup center spot last year. They're a legit 10 deep, and then they've got a couple of young guys waiting in the wings, and Sharif Cooper and Jared Johnson, and Lou Williams, or Jalen Johnson, excuse me. Lou Williams is still on this team. There's options, man. There's just a lot of options, so they got to figure it out. But it's going to go only as far as Trae Young and John Collins grow as the young leaders of this team, to hold themselves consistent and hold everybody else consistent too.
2 and 3 games of the season, a couple of surprising starts on the negative side. Brooklyn's 1-2, and so are the Lakers, who are 1-2 amongst teams that have not had the chance to. I should say chance. They've had a chance. They just haven't come out and looked as good as you would think they would. Losing a tough one to Charlotte yesterday, I think. It was kind of like watching my Knicks when you think about it. Like, it was a game that was close when it shouldn't have been close, and then the wrong team got hot in the fourth quarter, and you're like, whoa, slow, hey, stop that, knock it off. And Brooklyn couldn't stop Charlotte again. Charlotte's a team that you and I have both talked glowingly about, and so Brooklyn's going to try to stop that skid against Washington tonight. But let's start with Brooklyn first. 1-2 to start the season. Is there a lot of surprise there? Because their other loss was to Milwaukee, where they got kind of trucked in that game too. So, but they also, to sandwich in between that, the bad sandwich, they got a win at home against Phoenix. So, give me your synopsis on what's happening. Not what's happening, but how you feel about a 1-2 start for our presumptive NBA champions.
Yeah, it's surprising a little bit, but there are some new moving parts there and some things to figure out. James Harden only scoring 18 points a game right now, not playing all that efficiently. So he's got to kind of settle in. And this is a team that's got a lot of different options that can score, but Kevin Durant, averaging 33 points a game, continue to get him all those shots. But James Harden is having to work as the facilitator a little bit more, and he's passing up a lot in order to get other people going. I think you almost want to play dueling banjos a little bit more and let James maybe play apart from Kevin Durant and start to get him the ball and get him rolling. Paddy Mills is your third leading scorer. Ideally, that should probably be Joe Harris.
But it helps my 6th man of the year bet.
It does. But Harris is off to a really slow start. He's got a 5 for a player efficiency rating, so he's been kind of hot garbage. Blake Griffin has only appeared in 2 games. Paul Millsap has played 10 minutes a game through 3 appearances. I think Millsap has got to play more. I know there's not a ton left in the tank based on what we saw in Denver last year. But if you're not going to play Blake Griffin as much, I want Millsap out there more. Javon Carter is off to a horrendous start with no Kyrie Irving. It's going to be Patty Mills and Javon Carter playing that backup point guard role to James Harden. And Carter is really the only traditional point guard on the roster of guys that are actually going to play. James Harden is non-traditional. Patty Mills is non-traditional. So Carter's got to get this job, or that we may see a change there, like within the first 15 games, whether you move him or you cut him and you bring somebody else in. It's going to be quick. There's just a lot of guys who are not making shots. I saw them in the Milwaukee game. Again, they looked okay at times, but it really looked okay in getting Kevin Durant his shots.
Yes.
In getting everybody else looks that they are actually making, obviously didn't happen as much as it should have in a loss like that, but it just seemed like a lot of straining to get those looks to those players. And then when they actually did get a good look, they just didn't make it. So they're out of sync. But again, talent wins out. This team has got it. It's got a lot of veterans. It's got just enough young legs, maybe. But that's where you look at Nick Claxton, Bruce Brown, and Javon Carter and go, you guys got to bring the energy, because it's mostly veterans outside of you. So it's got to be energy with a purpose, but somebody's got to be a spark when things start to bog down a little bit too.
I think I said Phoenix. I meant Philadelphia. As far as their one win. On the other coast is the Lakers, who are 1-2 to start their season. I try not to, freak out this early, but I wonder, starting out losing to Golden State, who we've talked about their revenge / have you forgotten us, remember us tour. Mm-hmm. Then losing to Phoenix, who was basically the team that put you out last year in a heartbeat. I mean, had to be tough. A good rebound win against Memphis, obviously, to sort of at least get on the track to winning again. The Lakers, another slow start, as we were mentioning, where Avery Bradley had that game where he played 20-plus minutes and recorded no stats. It's another one of those teams I think they're not there yet. We expect them to be good. They're just not there yet. But the thing is, last year, that's how I felt about the Lakers the majority of the season last year, and they never sort of got completely there. I've seen Carmelo hitting big, long threes, too. Like, there's a lot of pieces still to like. There's just a lot of playing together that they need to do, I think, before they get to where they need to be.
And that's where I think the slow start is less surprising for LA. A lot of us were predicting that because there are so many moving parts. There are some parts where the fit is curious. To put Russell Westbrook and LeBron James on the same team, and it's not the Olympics. It's curious because of how much those guys need the ball. Carmelo Anthony prefers to have the ball in his hands to set up his shot. Anthony Davis can play off the ball, but is another guy that you want to have the rock and initiating himself where possible. I'll give them credit for winning that game the other night, last night at time of taping here against the Memphis Grizzlies. That was a game I really thought might have sunk the Lakers to 0-3 because the Grizzlies came in 2-0, playing with a lot of energy. It's a young, scrappy, physical team. It's the type of team that on paper should give the Lakers problems. But Carmelo Anthony came through. Is he going to shoot 10 for 15 from the floor and 6 of 8 from downtown? 28 points every night. You better hope not, because if you need that to win, and the Lakers needed that to win this game, you're not a very good team. They shot 53, almost 54% from the floor. Can they do that every night? No, those numbers are buoyed up by Carmelo. They got killed on the boards, 49-36. Is that sustainable? No. Carmelo literally erased most of the issues that were going on throughout that game because he got hot at the right time. And again, that's a testament to this team and the talent they have, that you got 4 different guys who theoretically can do that on just about any night. But Russell Westbrook is shooting 9% from the 3-point line and 35% from the floor, and is taking 14 shots a game. And, his player efficiency rating is like 6.5 right now. It's not efficient. Yeah, he's got some assists and rebounds because, and 2 steals a game because that's what he does, but he's averaging almost 6 turnovers a game. And the Lakers are trying to protect him. They're saying all the right things and about being patient, and there's a lot of truth to all that. He's the new guy in this. His style fits the least with these, with LeBron and Anthony Davis, but it's not completely incoherent. So it's early, but this type of catastrophic start for Westbrook is exactly why a lot of us were going, yeah, this Lakers team might get off to a slow start. And just because they picked up a name in Russell Westbrook doesn't mean it's the needle mover that everybody thinks it is. He's just got to settle in and find it. I mean, ideally early in the season, if I'm Russell Westbrook, yeah, teams are going to goad me into shooting that 3. but I'm going to make it my mission to get Carmelo Anthony 14 shots instead of 11 per game. And I'm going to bump mine down to 10 or 11 per game and settle in as the initiator, the guy who collapses the defense. I'm going to get some pick and roll drives with Davis going, which they've done. I've seen him throw some lobs to Davis. Do that same thing with LeBron. You just got to find where you fit. But Russell Westbrook is one of those players that for the last couple seasons, we have talked about over and over that when the drop-off happens for Russ, it's going to be Allen Iverson level ugly because so much of his game is based on that overpowering athleticism. The jump shooting is not there. It's never been there. And he has been so stubborn. In some ways, that's been a big testament and a big part of his success, just like it was for Iverson. But that was also a huge part of his downfall, in that he could not adapt from who he had been to who he needed to be in order to stay in the league and be a successful player on a successful team. And it was ugly. And you hope like this is not that moment for Russ. But I will say this. I thought the same thing about Carmelo Anthony a few years ago, and we saw that happening as his career nearly came off the rails in Houston and Oklahoma City. And to his credit, he came back with Portland, and he's doing the same thing with the Lakers. He evolved and adapted, and it's why he still is on a roster and still was able to give you, 28 points or whatever it was the other night, in 28 minutes. It wasn't playing like the old Carmelo, even though it looks like he was in the box score.
He looks great. Like he looks like he's really taking care of himself later in his career, which is a huge deal. Because a lot of dudes. Anyway, I want to wrap this up by a couple of for me at least, there's one surprising start that I wanted to talk about with you, and if you have something, we'll get to that next. Chicago Bulls are 3-0. The Chicago Bulls are 3-0, and they got a chance to go to 4-0 with a limping, to say the very least, Toronto Raptors team that's on the schedule tonight. First of all, quick question: do they go to 4-0? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so that road game in Toronto. Maybe one of the Bulls players is the one of the ones that gets arrested and fined for going to Canada and breaking the protocol.
Why would you wish that on them?
I wish it on somebody. I want it to happen to somebody just so I have the story to talk about. You're soon to be 4-0 Chicago Bulls. How surprising is that one? Because that one's got me up in my feels. Like, hey, this and they've won it in multiple ways too. They've won multiple ways this season, so that's been impressive to me. And they're covering the spread for all you gamblers out there. Like, they're looking good, man. They're looking good early, and this is one of those teams we thought we kind of like where they're going. We just well, I've said it personally. We just haven't seen it to completely believe it yet. And after 3 games, maybe they're here.
It's not that surprising for me. Yes, it's silly season here early on in the year. You remember a couple of years ago, the Orlando Magic started out like 6-1 or something like that.
Yes.
And, you asked me like, oh, is this sustainable? I was like, no, get out. Like, don't even ask that question. It's probably not sustainable that Washington and Charlotte are undefeated, even though both of them could be play-in tournament material. Chicago is a team that I've said absolutely should be play-in material and might be a 6 seed, a 7 seed, maybe even as high as 5 if everything breaks. Like, there is talent. The starting lineup makes sense, which I've said for the last couple seasons about the Bulls, but they were too young to know what to do with it. Now they've got a good balance of veterans and still some of that youth. Zach LaVine looks not only focused, but that he's focused on making winning plays on both ends of the court. That's a testament to his Olympic experience this last year and being around those professionals and seeing that. DeMar DeRozan looks like he understands where he fits on this team already. And that was a big question because, LaVine likes to operate in the mid-range. Nick Vucevic operates out of the mid-range, the mid-post a lot, although he can post up and he can stretch. DeMar DeRozan, as a guy who does not shoot threes, has to operate out of that mid-range as well. That typically is not, a recipe for modern winning basketball. But they found a good balance between that. DeRozan is often playing with the second unit, which allows him to then kind of take over, and you can force feed him the ball. And he's been a professional scorer his entire career. But even when he's out there with Levine and Vucevic, he's doing a lot of cutting, backdoor, a lot of moving, coming off of pin downs. And Levine is a very willing passer who's had to play point guard a couple of times in his career, much like Devin Booker over in Phoenix. And Vucevic is one of the better and more underrated passing big men in the league too. So there's a lot to like there. Alex Caruso hasn't shot the ball all that well coming in, but has given them a spark defensively. And I am going to say this. I have liked Lonzo Ball a lot better as an NBA player than I ever thought I would. I liked him when he was in LA. I liked him when he was on the Pelicans. I do not understand why they moved on from him. And I love the backcourt of Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine. They are both big guards. They are heady. Both of them can hit the three. The fact that Ball gets to run a fast break where you've got LaVine as a finisher and you've got, DeRozan as a backdoor cutter and Vucevic as a dump off guy. You got Patrick Williams as another one, a garbage player, but he can get above the rim a little bit. Like, I really like the Bulls. I don't know where their depth is. Their bench scares me a lot beyond Alex Caruso. They're going to figure that out. It's a lot of young guys who are kind of hitting their third and fourth season, but they've bounced around a little bit. We're going to see how good that group is. And if and when injuries hit for the Bulls, that could be a major problem. So it's a similar story to what we look at with the Hornets, where you're like, starting 5, 6, 7 deep, excellent. After that, let's not test that too much. And if we do, bad things might happen. So,
yeah,
but they're on their way and they're going to be fun. And it's cool to see them making winning plays on the defensive end. Stacey King has talked a lot about that during their broadcasts. Just the fact that they're talking on defense, and the young teams of the last couple years were horrific at talking in Chicago. And it made so many stupid mistakes where you go, you're an NBA player and you're an NBA defensive unit. How does this keep happening? Some of that got pegged on Jim Boylan, but a lot of it was happening with Billy Donovan last year. Now you ship out Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. because maybe they were damaged goods after that era. But you bring in other guys. It's not like DeRozan and Vucevic are well known as defensive players, right? They're fine, but that's not really what you think of with them. And LaVine has been a minus defender most of his career. But the fact that they're moving, they're getting into passing lanes, and they're talking, rotations look crisper. It just looks like a more professional defense. And that may be the key to then unlocking what we all thought was going to be a really good offense with these players anyway.
It's interesting what you brought up, what Stacey King said. Usually when I watch these broadcasts or any of the highlights, it's on mute because, I got a baby and stuff. So it's on mute and I'm just watching the game. So I'd not sort of heard and or seen that. So that's interesting. That's interesting to think about. That's something that's noticeable to him this early in the season.
Through 3 games, the Chicago Bulls are giving up 94 points a game.
That's pretty good.
That is the best. Atlanta's tied with them at 94. Toronto's giving up 94.7. But again, for a team that was bad defensively, and granted, the Bulls have played the Pistons twice, a team that really struggles to score. This could look a lot different in a week. But the foundation for good habits seems to be there right now.
You don't have to go along with this. I just wanted to get your thought on it, and you can be brief with it. We can wrap up. We want to talk about what's sustainable. Oklahoma City is 0-3, and they have lost by 21, 33, and 12. Is this sustainable?
Yes, this is a G League team operating in the NBA. It's going to be ugly. And you just hope that enough of those young kids walk out of there alive and have a career after this, because massive losing seasons like that sometimes produce diamonds in the rough for you. And sometimes it really, catalyzes some of your stars. You think of what Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook went through when they came into the league with the Seattle Supersonics, who then became the Thunder. It was very similar to this. The only problem is I don't really see a Kevin Durant or a Russell Westbrook walking around in a Thunder jersey right now. I see some good players, some players I really like a lot, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but not necessarily like transcendent stars?
I'm just going to be nice to them because they have the Warriors tomorrow night. So things will happen.
They'll steal a couple games in Oklahoma City where somebody sleepwalks in, and all of a sudden, young team with a big noisy crowd behind them, jumps up on you. They'll steal a couple games like that.
Well, Golden State's coming in, so if you want to be the team to go 3-0, gets their streak broken by 0-3, even though O is a letter.
Don't do it, Golden State. Don't do that to us.
Don't do that to us. Okay, hey, you know what? Let me look this up real quick just to see. What's their team name again? OKC Thunder. Okay. I want you to predict where they're going to get their first win real quick. I'll just go through their schedule briefly coming up. So this week before we record again will be the Warriors at on the road. At home. At home against the Lakers on Wednesday, and then Saturday is at Golden State.
Mm-hmm.
And then Monday will be the Clippers. Next Thursday will be the Lakers, the Spurs, and then the Pelicans, and then the Kings.
Their two chances are home against the Lakers on that Wednesday, or home against the Kings on Friday. Nets could be a possibility too, because you know what? Some of these good teams, veteran teams, are going to rest starters when they play on the road in Oklahoma City. So those are the possibilities. Honestly, it may be that they pick up one against a team that, no, on paper they should never win against, but LeBron sat that night, or Anthony Davis sat, or Kevin Durant got the night off. Like, that's where it's going to happen. They're not going to win on the road. I don't think Oklahoma City wins more than like 3 games on the road this year. They're going to need that home court cooking to even get these wins.
Warriors are only a 9-point favorite on the road. Kuminga is out. Iguodala is out. Clay is obviously out. And James Wiseman's out.
Mm-hmm. But almost all of those guys except Iguodala have been out already. So there's nothing new there. They'll be playing basically their full complement. No, I expect the Warriors to win. I'm sure I just jinxed them, but
yeah, if they don't get it, I'm not sure how soon it happens. But again, that's why they play it on the court. What? Did you mute?
Well, I was muted, yeah. We got noisy kids in the background here.
All right.
No one would have ever known that, Arky, Shea, except for the YouTube watchers.
Yeah, well, now they do know. And now you listeners know too. Joe, wrap it up. Get us out of here under the hour mark.
So this is the Moses Malone episode, and we'll be back next Monday. You can get the audio version. It's usually Monday evening, and the video version comes up Tuesday morning. Find us on YouTube, search Basketball by Association or BbA. Find us on Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. The Moses Malone episode is in the books. Again, a walking double-double. Arky, Shea, who's the next Knicks opponent that you're looking forward to?
Okay, can I be honest with you for just a second before you punch me in the face like that? Because I honestly get very defensive with my Knicks. I don't know if you noticed that, right?
That's news to me.
Okay. All right. I think it's Philly. Let me look real quick. I'll click on that. I think it's Philly. Yeah, it's Philly tomorrow night. So it doesn't matter. The Knicks they could sleepwalk through the beginning part of the
wasn't
season.
trying to put you on the spot of like, who's their next game? I was just like, what team? There's always like an opponent where like, ooh, I'm looking forward to this game for whatever reason. Either your team has a chance to win, or you just like that opponent, or you just think it'll be a good matchup, whatever it is. So
I'm just used to winning. Plus, I hate Philly. So, I hate Boston first, Philly second. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little depressed that Joel Embiid did get hurt by trying to destroy Josh Giddey last night, but whatever.
That's what Embiid does.
That's Joel. Did you see that attempt by the blog, by the way? I know we were just already wrapped up, but
I did not. No.
Yeah, it was like 3 minutes to go. They were up like 15, and Giddey gets like an outlet pass. They're running on a fast break, and he goes to put it up, and Joel Embiid's like, "I want to block it," and like he almost breaks Josh Giddey's legs. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, dude? Like you're getting paid $200 million. Like, come on.
Right. Next game for me, I'm looking forward to is Wolves Nuggets on Saturday night, October 30th. They always get up for those games against each other, and this will be a good test to find out whether Minnesota is actually good or not. They got the Bucks a couple nights before that.
Oh my God.
That's the end.
If they win that game, we may have to go to the NBA Finals together. We may have to go together.
We may have like a little side cart to hitch to the bandwagon.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.